Welcome to the Village of Wappinger Falls monthly regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees today, Wednesday, July 14th, 2021, 7:02 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for attending. Clerk?
All right, recognition and special events. Congratulations to the village on being awarded the CDBG, that's Community Development Block Grant for $100,000 for Bain Park. Mayor, you want to say anything about that?
Well, we had submitted it. It was submitted before my election to the board, and we were told that we were in the running for it, and we've been awarded it. And so we will spend the money wisely. Most of it probably for playground equipment. And I'm very thankful to the county, and so we can move forward on that park. And that's about it, unless Corey, you want to add something? And Cindy, since you actually both worked on it?
No, at the moment, definitely appreciate the county giving us that funding. You know, it's a large project with a lot more steps and phases to do, but every little bit helps.
Correct.
I think we're also going to, well, you're bringing it up later on, that we have to give Casey the go-ahead to finish up the work because the playground company has asked to start installation as of August 10th. So in order for them to get the work done from Casey, they do need to get started on it. But I would like to, when that comes up, I'd like to discuss with the board. We're going to have to change the scope of the project. We didn't get as much funding as we thought we were going to get. And so it will mean that we need to make some alterations in the design of what we had hoped to accomplish with this phase. So I can discuss it when we bring that up.
Fine.
Okay. The village has received two proclamations, one from Senator Sue Serino and one from County Executive Marcus Molinaro for the village that recently celebrated their 150-year celebration. So I'll read them. This first one is from the State of New York Senate Proclamation, Legislative Proclamation commending the 150th anniversary of the Village of Wappinger Falls to be celebrated on Saturday, July 10, 2021. And whereas it is the sense of this legislative office to recognize events of significance which exemplify the history and development of the state of New York. Each city, town, village, and hamlet within the borders of our great Empire State proudly resonates with its rich and noble history. And whereas it is also the custom of this legislative office to recognize and honor the founding of municipalities throughout the state, noting in turn their contributions to the fabric and progression of this great Empire State. And whereas, attendant to such concern and in full accord with its long-standing traditions, this legislative office is proud to commemorate the sesquicentennial of the Village of Wappinger Falls, New York. This auspicious milestone will be celebrated on Saturday, July 10th, 2021. And whereas the region was originally settled in 1659 by Christians from the Massachusetts Bay Colony in hopes to seek religious freedom. In 1685, Francis Rambout and Julian Verplanck legally purchased 85,000 acres from the Wappinger, which is known as the Rambout Patent. And whereas the Village of Wappinger Falls was incorporated in 1871, and whereas the Village of Wappinger Falls has a rich agriculture industrial history, the most notably residents were Jacob Swarthout, Dan Brothers, and Frederick Rowe. And whereas in recognition of this rich history of the village of Wappingers Falls, it is the heritage of the state of New York, it is the intent of this legislative office to join in commemorating the 150-year anniversary so that present and future generations may come to appreciate the unique sacrifice which this history plays in the progression of our state and nation's evolution. Now therefore be it resolved that this legislative office pause in its deliberations to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the village of Wappingers Falls, recognizing the significance of the role it continues to play in the life of the community and the state of New York, and be it further resolved that a copy of this proclamation suitably engrossed be transmitted to the mayor of the village of Wappingers Falls. July 10, 2021, Sue Serino, New York State Senator, 41st Senate District. The second one was from County Executive Marcus Molinaro. Dutchess County Executive Proclamation, whereas the village of Wappingers Falls was incorporated in 1871, including the adjacent community on the west side of the Wappinger Creek, and whereas the village once was home to over 20 factories, one of which produced the first pair of denim jeans in the world, and over 40 saloons. And whereas, that's Marcus, right? The local waterfall, Wappingers Falls, contributed to the industrial development where in 1819, a small cotton mill was constructed in a hollow created by the creek. In addition, two halves of the village are connected by a stone arch bridge built in 1884. And whereas the village of Wappingers Falls is a great place for people who want to live simple life, raise a family, and still having many benefits of being an urban area. And whereas today, the village of Wappingers Falls still maintains its peaceful character, providing a sense of community and family. Now therefore, I, Marcus J. Molinaro, County Executive of Dutchess County, do hereby join the residents of the village of Wappingers Falls in celebrating 150 years of community and extend my best wishes for all future endeavors. Marcus Molinaro, Dutchess County Executive. That's very nice, two of them. It was a very busy day, was the mayor. You weren't able to read these that day. But it was very nice of them to do that.
Yes, it was. The next item is a thanks for making our sesquicentennial a huge success for the volunteers. I'm going to read a little something, and because that line doesn't do it justice. So we had this sesquicentennial. A lot of planning went into effect. We had great weather, all things considered, after a really lousy week of weather. But the weather was great. The crowd was excellent, somewhere between 780 to 850 or so. The vendors were very, very happy, and the fireworks were spectacular. This was a volunteer event. I would like to thank, not in any specific order, but I will thank the Police Commissioner Ferry for providing a detail for traffic control on the street, Highway Superintendent Pete Podgy, and the Highway Department for getting the park ready, the tree cleanup that they suffered after the storm, and delivering the horses. The Wappinger Falls Fire Department with Chief Travis, with Garner and S.W. Johnson for attending, and their members who attended, and W.T. Garner for providing drinks, water and tea for free. Mobile Life Ambulance, who was there just in case, and it's a necessary that they were there. The vendors for attending, Big Band Sound for providing the music, and the volunteers. Joan O'Brien, Dave Twilliger, Charlie and Bernice, Twilliger and Rizzo, Jill McCourt, Teresa and Ken Cruzy, Beth Huber, Kevin Huber, Bob McDonough, Don McCormick, Heather McCormick, Danny Masterson, and Harry Turbish for the engineering the barge weight loads, 3,300 pounds on the barge. I'd like to thank them, and it takes a little bit from a little bit of people, and when you add it all up, we had a great day. So, with that said, I thank you all for whatever part you had in this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for all you did to make it happen.
Roll call, clerk.
Mayor Sereno,
Present.
Trustee Sidoti,
Here.
Trustee Ponte,
Here.
Trustee Nesnick,
Here.
Trustee Huber,
Present.
Trustee Ruffin,
Here.
Village Attorney Wallace,
Here.
Trustee Larissell is on vacation.
Action on the minutes, June 9th, 2021 meeting. Motion to accept,
I'll make them.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Carried. June 30th,
I'll make it.
2021 meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. So carried. Because of the Finance Chairman's Lauricella's vacation, I got to sign the bills in his place. So I'll make a motion to accept the bills as submitted. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, regular session, clerk.
Resolution number 17, 2021 of 2021. Resolution hiring Highway Department laborer. Whereas the Village of Wappingers Falls Highway Department currently has a vacancy in their department for a full-time laborer. And whereas Highway Superintendent Peter Paggi, by email dated July 14, 2021, has made a request and recommendation to the mayor and the village board to hire a full-time laborer in the highway department. Now therefore, be it resolved that the village board of trustees hereby hires Liam Slocum to the position of full-time laborer for the highway department at an hourly rate of $21.43, with benefits as offered by the village. Need a motion.
I'll make it.
I'll second it.
Seconded by trustee Ponte. Favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Roll call. Mayor Sereno.
Aye.
Trustee Huber.
Aye.
Trustee Sidoti.
Aye.
Trustee Nesnick.
Aye.
Trustee Ruffin.
Aye.
Trustee Ponte.
Aye.
Carried.
At our last meeting, we discussed the CSCA negotiation relative to creating a spot for recreation. And with that said, if there's any other discussion on that before we vote to select the negotiating team, I'd like to hear it. Okay. So, trustees Ponte, Sadati, and Niznik, along with labor attorney Dave Wise, will be on that committee. That's basically to create the position and then create the step schedule of pay. We have none of that right now. So that will be added to the other end of the regular CSEA contract. There will be the rate of pay for recreation, and then the steps year 1 to year 7, I believe. You step up in pay every year. So, with that said, I'll entertain a motion. At least the position will be created and the pay schedule will be in place for future use.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Carried.
Mayor, on the next one, I think there's a miscommunication. It's not $600 a month for that one.
Well, I'll tell you where I think the $600 a month is. So I'll just keep the $600 a month. At the water board meeting on Monday, at the very end of the meeting, the water commissioners discussed the low salary for Chairman Mary Morris, and they voted to increase her pay to $600 a month. That's where the $600 a month is.
All right.
So, the water board wants to increase Mary Morris on the water board from $300 to $600 a month for her efforts and the work that she's doing right now for the water board. So that will be a motion.
Is that what we're voting on now?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Then going back to the part-time laborer for the village water plant.
Were we gonna take that into executive? Mayor, we had talked about that this afternoon.
We can save this item for exec.
Table, okay.
If the board would not mind if I could just take a couple minutes to explain the request and then just at least provide you with where we're coming from. We lost one of our full-time operators at the end of May. He was a 30-year operator. We are lucky to have someone who is coming to us but who doesn't have a lot of experience in the water area and is going to need training. So what we're requesting is, with the savings that we've achieved from not starting a new person until the middle to the end of July, the savings we've achieved from the 1st of June, we're looking for just a temporary, no more than 90 days, temporary part-time position that could assist with the maintenance items that occur at the plant, the cleaning and general administration. Rather than have our 2 operators have to focus on that while they're training, it gives them sufficient time to focus on the training of the new full-time person.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Approval to advance Bain Park project and installation of playground equipment.
Well, I spoke to KC Engineering, Nancy Clark today, and she said that that was going to be moving forward, the installation of the playground equipment, and what Cindy Latinowitz said, the scope may change a little bit here or there, but I think the intent is the installation of the playground equipment with the money.
I think so if I can just elaborate on a little bit. So when Corey and I submitted the second grant to the county, the first grant we received back in 2020 was for $100,000, and that was to pay for the equipment, which is what we did. We have a lot of that for. We submitted a second grant and went in fairly high on that grant because our intent was we needed to cover the cost of the company installing the equipment, but we also needed to have pathways around that playground. We wanted to develop some parking, handicap parking, and access from that handicap parking area into the playground area. So we went in fairly high with the grant, expecting that they would cut back on it. They cut back on it much more than we expected. We had anticipated possibly getting a grant for $150,000 versus the $100,000 that we got. While we can scale back on some of it, there are some things that are absolutely necessary to still have within that scope of installing that playground. And what I'm asking the board to perhaps consider is that if, and I don't actually know what the cost will come in yet until Nancy's able to figure out what can we actually do with the money that we have, that we might be able to draw from restricted recreation funds if there are things that are absolutely necessary to have in this first phase. And by that, I'm specifically identifying the pathways around the playground to get access to the playground, and at least some kind of handicapped parking area, because this is an inclusive playground and we want to be able to make it available to those kids that have special needs, particularly wheelchair access to the playground. And I'm just asking the board, I'd like to, have the recreation committee involved in helping us make the decisions as to, how things are going to proceed and stuff too. There are a couple of smaller grants that we can go after as well, which we will try and do as quickly as possible to kind of get some extra funding for those things that need to go in.
So Cindy, you're saying that besides just installing the playground equipment, there's other things that have to be done to access the playground equipment?
Well, obviously, if you're going to have, we need to have
Right.
some kind of parking area. And
I
that's my
understand.
main concern, is that handicap parking area and pathways into it. So we need some kind of ability.
So I think
for those-
we should get together with the Recreation Committee and Corey and turn around and sit down and see, because it sounds like so far we got $200,000.
Right.
Exactly how much is left, how much to pay for the equipment, how much we've already spent in engineering, because one of the things I heard today is that we have to go after more engineering, but if there's other things that have to happen, like a sidewalk before we install before we can get to the playground equipment, then we need to assess all of that before we spend a dime going further on any engineering, I believe, and that's something that we should talk about.
Can I backtrack on the engineering? I'm not sure how many people were on the board at this point. At the point of time when we had Casey Engineering and when we were discussing Bain Park, this was in March of 2020, and we approved the contract to have the site plan and work done by Casey. That was approved by the village board at that time to pull those funds from the restricted rec fund. So that the funds for Casey should not be coming out of this $200,000
So
grant
as
yet.
far, I believe I have a letter from Nancy, and that's more of what we'll sit down and get everything together. Only a certain percentage of that fund, that engineering has been paid for.
Right.
So we need to know exactly what has been paid for, where it came from, where they think it's going to come from, and just before anybody makes any decisions, have a really clear plan going forward.
The only thing that I'm aware of that would incur us more engineering costs is if we actually had to have them create a bid package to go out to bid for a particular part of that, the installation.
I just want to be
playground
sure
stuff.
what the plans are going forward.
Yeah.
This way we know.
I mean, that's my understanding is that, and to my knowledge, I don't think that there is anything that we need to go out to bid on. I think we,
I'll just interrupt, Jack. As of today, in my conversation with Nancy, she did not believe that either. But we have 2 weeks before we meet again, and we can find out exactly how much we owe left on the equipment.
We should just all have a clear piece of paper saying, this is what's left, this is what, you know, it's gonna cost, because from what I understand, we haven't even fully paid for the equipment.
No.
So,
We have really, we put $10,000 in good faith.
right, so just a very clear, easy to read, and Corey, maybe you can get this together for us, exactly how much money we have, what it's gonna cost to get the playground up and functional, if there's other things, pathways to it, what that's gonna cost before we, to do anything. I think we need to have a very, very clear plan.
So, I just want to be clear as well, though, that that Compan, the playground company, has targeted August 10th as the date that they would like to start this installation.
We can get that
So can we
information
get
together
this
tomorrow.
stuff
So
done? Okay.
it doesn't have to take long to get that information.
Okay,
together.
so we are clear that we're okay to move ahead on it, but we're going to do within the parameters of what we can actually pay for.
What we can afford.
Okay.
This
What we have
was
left.
This was a pay-as-you-go project.
Yeah.
So, with that.
I'm just
said-
saying, there's not, if we spend all the money and we go to have something else done and we leave something important out, like a walkway to the actual equipment, that's gonna be an issue,
Oh, no,
because,
we have the blueprints for all of that.
well, just so we all, I don't know exactly everything that's paid for, not paid for, so we just need to get.
We do have some material, Tilcon's been generous enough to donate the material that we need to compact the site with and everything, so that's a huge savings to us as well, so.
That'll just be helpful information if you can get that together, Corey.
So, I'll entertain a motion to advance Bain Park project and installation, God bless you, and installation of the playground equipment.
I'll make that motion.
Motion and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye.
Was that Mike Ruffin?
Yes. And Ann Poppy. We have a resignation, of Police Officer Matthew Wall, effective, well, he's already retired or resigned, July 2nd. Motion to accept,
I'll make that motion.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Carried. July 12th, 2020, members of W.T. Garner Engine Company voted in John McCluskey as a member of the company and department.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mayor votes aye. Carried. Grant updates. Corey?
Do I just do it from sitting, Rick, or do you want me
You
to?
can go up to the mic.
Pre-COVID ritual. Yeah, so we spoke already about the CFA, the $100,000. The big thing in July are the CFAs, is the consolidated funding applications. It's where you go for a group of grants all at once. We currently have 3 we're pursuing. Well, 2, but I'll get to that in a moment. The first one is for the East Main development that Cindy has been helping me work on. I brought it up to you last meeting. We wanted to meet with business owners on the East Main Street block on the south side, ones that have endured catastrophe like the fire in 2017, the fire in 2020, and the Goring Hall collapse, which I believe was in 2012. So we are going to have a meeting on Tuesday, July 20th, where we're going to present what this grant entails and what we would need from those business owners, and we're going to see which one of them would like to be in on it. A few of them have already accepted and are interested in it, and there are a few others we're still waiting on a response from, but we're going to have a presentation Tuesday, July 20th at 7 p.m. at Legion Hall, I believe this time. So obviously, as the board, all are welcome to attend that and see what we're going to do going forward. The second one is a water grant for the green sand filters. We are still, I know there's still talks about the USDA loan and whether or not we're going to go forward with that. It is a large sum of money. This grant that we're going for, the aim of it is if we do go forward with the USDA loan, grants can chip away at our portion of the loan that we'd owe. So while I don't want to go, this green sand filter project's about a $7 to $10 million project. While I don't want to, it's highly unlikely we'd get this grant for the whole $7 million for the project, but I'm hoping that if we do move forward with the USDA loan, I'm going to go for $2 million in this to just help chip away at the overall price of the loan. So it's sort of tied in with the USDA. Of course, if we decide not to go forward with that, we won't go forward with this grant either. But that is just something to keep in mind, and it's not the only grant moving forward we're going to go with to try and chip away at that loan if we decide to move forward with it. And then the third grant, this is the one that I don't believe we're actually going to move forward on. It's the one I brought up about the aeration for taking our weed harvester out and harvesting the materials and using this compost to actually create energy from it. The compost disintegrates the, whatever it is, the weeds, and the gas that it makes is sort of like a methane that can be turned into energy through this process. The gentleman who was going to do the presentation on it, both last week and this week, he's unavailable to do it. He's actually in Norway at the moment. And he's still really, really passionate about doing this project, and he wants to get it done. Obviously, the money for it was about $1 million project, and even with our match being, if it was 10%, $100,000, the weed wouldn't have counted, and so the only thing we could put forward for it would be the labor hours that the weed harvester people do, which I think at most would come to, I don't know, $25,000 to $30,000. So it wouldn't cover our match. I brought that up with him. So what he wants to do is actually continue conversations. He says, look, I want to make this work somehow. I want to meet with you and try and figure out a way where you guys could do this and we could get a project going. So in the next coming weeks, he wants to continue having conversations. He'd love to have a conversation with the, I don't know if there's a lake committee. He would love to talk to them about some sort of way we can do this. I just let him know that, you know, for the time frame we're at with submitting these grants, which is due July 30th, there just isn't a way we'd actually have a solid grant moving forward with this project, with those conversations still necessary. So I told him we're going to hold off on going for the funding this go-round, but keep those conversations going with him. And when we're actually at a good place with this project and we know what he's willing to do for us, we'd go for funding then. So those are just the 3 updates on the CFAs. And the last thing I just want to say is I reopened conversations with the EPA. I know KC has been coming in, and their update has basically been we're waiting on the EPA to give us some documentation and comments back. So I sent in just a payment request. It's just for $2,100. We obviously haven't been able to do very much with this project. But between that and then having a phone call, we just sort of wanted to get it going again and say, hey, you know, our engineers have said we're kind of waiting on this stuff. Is there a way we can get that moving? Because time's a ticking. It's almost been all winter where we've been sort of stalled with this. And they came back to us with some feedback, and they acknowledged that, you know, they got the payment request and they got the documentation they needed. So by the end of the week, we expect to have what we need in order to move forward and actually go to, this would be at the Bleachery property where this is focused on, and start doing some field work and start moving that grant along. So again, hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have what we need to give to KC and start doing more of that. So that's all I had for today, but I can answer any questions.
Well, what time is that meeting on the 27th?
7 p.m. and it's on the 20th,
20th.
Tuesday.
Right.
Tuesday 20th, yeah. 7 p.m. Legion Hall.
Now, you had mentioned with that you had already talked to some business owners. Is there other possible business owners that could qualify for, I mean, is there, what's the criteria? Do you have to be in the area, maybe?
Yeah, so what we were originally looking at was just that East Main Street block because they were all affected together. There are conversations of expanding it to put in Knights of Columbus as well as county players across the street.
Well, if you take that whole little area, just go down Market Street, how many of them were affected by you know, the businesses being shut down, the roads being shut down, the fences up, that, I mean, I think that kind of extends all the way down that block.
Yeah. So, and that's what, so Cindy has brought that up. I was actually the one a bit like, you know, the larger we go, sort of the more loftier it is, but she was also convinced me, you know, there, as you said, there's just a lot of people
To be honest with
affected.
you, a lot of people around the block and down the road didn't get insurance money or didn't get coverage, such as some of the other businesses that were,
Well, that's-
you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
they had to tough it out and lost a lot of money and really couldn't reclaim any of it. So just might be something to consider.
Yeah, so we can, I mean, again, we might be able to open it up then even more. I did want to have somewhat of a concentrated area, but I mean, that is still in the same region, and they all have been affected. So again, if anyone's watching or word of mouth, that meeting is Tuesday, 7 p.m. We'd love for business owners to come, and we can, you know, discuss what we need from them moving forward and what we want to do. So that's a good point.
You have a question behind you?
Yes.
Corey, just for my own knowledge, the guy that's dealing with the weeds in the lake, what does he do with the weeds? Why is it beneficial? What can he do for us?
Yeah, so this is why I wish he was able to make it, because obviously he knows the science behind it more than
Right.
I do. But he has, there's like these giant tanks, they're almost compost bins.
Okay?
And you harvest the weeds, you put them in there, and as they decompose, they create this methane gas that can actually be transferred into energy. And the point would be to put the energy back into the grid, sort of like what the hydroelectric facility does.
Okay.
Except this would be through decomposing plants rather than running water.
So we could put it back in, or he would take it and put it back into the grid?
No, it would be us. His project would be to create this bin, or create this, you know, system and implement it and install it, and then it would be for ours it would be villages, and we would be supplying back.
And this would be ongoing energy for us, for the village?
Correct. But, you know, again, a lot of the information he needed, like one thing he asked was how much are you pulling out? And I said, I don't think we keep that number. I don't know if we, you know, we don't say like, oh, we're pulling out 300 pounds, you know, a week or however often we do it. So those are sort of the things where I was like, you know what, we won't be able to have a solid project in place by the end of July. But I do want him to end up coming and have this phone conversation. He actually also has a PowerPoint that I wouldn't have done it justice to present it myself. So I didn't want to do that, but
So we don't think it's a good idea to move forward with this? I mean, if we're gonna benefit with this?
no, I think it's a great idea moving forward, but the grant deadline for this go-round was at the end of July. And for the ongoing conversations, and again, he's on the other side of the world at the moment, I don't think we would have a solid foundation for the project and all the information we need by the end of July. So I just think the project, I still believe to move forward, but maybe we go for grant funding the next go-round instead of trying to rush something
Okay,
out.
and we do think this will come around again?
Oh, yeah,
Probably
this,
next year.
yeah.
Because to me, this seems like almost like a no-brainer. I mean, if we're gonna get energy back from this, and we're gonna get an opportunity to clean up the lake,
Definitely.
I mean, if we can clean up the lake, that's gonna be huge for the businesses of Wappingers.
Definitely.
I mean, because if that lake ever becomes what it was when I was a kid, that will make businesses thrive around this area, because this will become a draw.
I agree. Like I said, the only thing was also is $1 million project, and our match would be at minimum 100,000, which is a lofty, you know, for the village. Obviously, that's a lot of money. So that's why he also said he's willing to sort of work and maybe try and downsize it or try and figure out a way to make it cheaper. But there's just no way we were going to get all of that concrete by the end of July in order to put the grant in.
I see
So
your point, but going forward.
Definitely.
Even if it costs us $100,000 and we're gonna get energy to put back into the grid, I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Well, I think even, and again, he's so passionate about it, I think he was willing to, again, almost look into finding a way where our match could be satisfied some other way. But that was just an idea. I think he was just saying that just to try and really sell it, like, hey, I really want to do this. So again, we're still going to talk to him. I said for the next couple of weeks, I still want to have this conversation. We just wouldn't be able to get something in
Right.
by the end of July. But no, we still definitely intend on keeping
And I think
contact.
you're 100% right. If we can get him here and explain really what's going on,
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome.
Is this that gentleman, Larry?
No, it's not Larry.
Not Larry.
This gentleman's name is
Another
Nick.
person.
Okay.
One more question, John. Does he have a business plan that actually shows, what it takes to maintain this, how much square footage it requires to exist, and, what kind of support it needs by personnel to operate it, and then some type of table algorithm that says for every X amount of lead that you throw into this thing, you get so many kilowatts out or something?
Yeah, so again, a lot of that information as far as square footage and what he'd need, a lot of his questions were, how much are you pulling out? How many people do you have in the weed harvester? Like, what is your capacity for actually collecting the weeds and all that? And unfortunately, I just didn't have that information for him. So is that ready yet, that type of business plan? No, but that is what he intends on doing moving forward, is getting that type of business plan. But he needs a little bit more information from me.
So has he done this before in other locations?
He has not, but he's actually contacted Beacon and Kingston as well. And his first offer was, well, maybe like you three could collaborate for something. But again, just by the end of the month, I said there's no way we're going to do something by then. He's still actually contacting them to see what their situation is with this. But as far as I understand, no, I don't think he actually has a compost plan implemented at the moment.
Okay, so there's no other proof points that we could look to see how that works?
I can't say 100% no, but I'm pretty sure no, not yet.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
It may be crazy, but the energy that it creates that would go back into the grid, would the people in the village see a difference in their bills?
That is a good
Who
question.
actually sees the difference and feels the difference?
Well, one thing he asked me was, he goes, so we put it back into the grid. He goes, so what is your guys' grid? Like who's a part of?
I can't picture the grid.
Right. No, and that's what I told him as well. I said I was trying to picturing sort of what Central Hudson covers. That actually might be. I'm actually gonna ask Harry Turnbush, because he's someone who puts into the grid, and I'm gonna try and get some information from him about sort of what does that entail, and yeah, how does that come back to actually profit the village? Because you're right, if it's not profiting us.
I mean, I'm all for saving the planet and doing, things that are.
Right.
But I think the people.
Like to help us as well,
Well,
no doubt, yeah. So yeah, it's something I'm probably going to try and ask Harry Turnbush about, get some more info on.
Corey, if I could just add something to it too. I think one of the other points that we were trying to make with getting involved in this type of a grant is that it puts us on the radar for other potential grants that would become available, because this is a pilot program that he's going after to do. And, it would lend us to being a more favorable funding source for other types of cleanup from the lake, whether it's from EPA or whoever. So that's one of the perks of us getting involved in something like this as well.
Yeah, we are technically a climate smart community now, so yeah, this is something that lines up with our mission.
Just a sidebar to what is talked about. With Harry Turbish, with Windsor Machinery, they do have a 10% plan where if you go to them for your electricity, you can save 10%. On another note, the average kilowatts that plant produced, I'm going back a few years, I don't know what the water has been in the 10, 11 years since I was off the board, but they used to generate 8.5 million kilowatts a year, which is equal to 2,200 households. So that would show you how much the water generates. Now,
I was going to say, I don't think the compost would really be rivaling that, but...
no, but whatever more you add to that, a little here and a little there.
So, I just got one thing. So, I'm confident that the lake committee will meet with him if he can get here to town to talk
Definitely.
about this. Move forward with it after Hopefully, if we get the right information, we'll give him what he needs, we'll get a plan,
Sure.
it works out. We'll meet with him though, if he can get here.
Good, yeah, awesome.
The only other thing I would say about it, because Tom touched on it, is, you know, what's the maintenance of the
The
process?
actual, right.
I mean, does it take employees? Do we have to hire people? We would need to, and it sounds like this is his first.
Yeah, I mean, as
Oh, and
Sydney
so
said,
he's
it's sort
not-
of a pilot project, so
We
it's,
would need to know, it might cost us more to maintain the system than it does to, I mean, obviously it seems like the biggest goal is to clean up the lake through all of this. I wouldn't think it would be electricity, but I think it would be the clean up the lake, and we're in the process of doing that, you know, we're trying to do that anyway. They're only gonna be able to process as much as we take out. So, I would be more interested to see what kind of follow-up is gonna happen once he puts
It also
something
would
down.
get rid of the weeds though, too, that are just piling up on the banks. But
Correct.
like I said, we need to hear what he has to say and just see what the plan is before we can even discuss it. We don't even know what we're discussing right
right, right.
So,
Yeah,
if he wants to meet, we'd be happy to meet with him.
okay, good.
Yes, if we pursue this project, does that mean now we have to pull weeds out of there every year for years to come? A lot of us have been hoping for a solution to that lake problem for years. It sounds like if we do this, now we gotta just keep pulling weeds out year after year after year to keep this project going. I guess, what is the plan here? Is that a continuous thing for you? What if someday we find a better solution for that lake?
Right. I mean,
Then does this whole project just, okay, we're not doing it anymore?
well, my answer to that would be, of course, the project, it is a pilot study, so we're just seeing how this works and how well it works. Pilot projects are typically temporary, but even if we have the compost and it's working, I'm not sure it's just weeds you pull out of the lake that could go into this. So if you're right, if by some miracle within the next 10 years, we clean up the lake and we suddenly have no weeds in there, which would be amazing, I would assume that there are other ways that you can use this compost bin in order to make energy. But I think that's a few years away, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
I want our lake pretty,
Okay, great.
like the ones that I root
All right. Legislative Trustee Ruffin.
Okay, so thank you to John Carge and Charlie Ferry for the research that they did. John had contacted, was it John? It was the New York State DOT?
Region 8, New York State DOT.
Thank you for that. So when we were looking into complaints, I want everybody to understand why we're doing this. On West Street, we've received several complaints from Mr. and Mrs. Harvey, the Pantaleos, Alfonsos, and the Atkinsons, that people were not obeying the existing traffic signs that are, those no parking signs that are on West Street. Now, they run from about 100 feet from the corner of 9D towards Hillside on West Street. And, I talked to Charlie Ferry about that, so there are some issues with enforcement there. What was recommended by Charlie was to just make that one side of the street parking, and that would make it easier for our police to enforce that no parking regulation. We're not trying to take away anybody's spot, but what legislative is requesting is we're requesting a public hearing to adopt one local law with these three parts. And the Reader's Digest version is in your agendas. No parking on the north side of West Street, west of Route 9D. Kevin had asked as part of this local law, Kevin, do you want to introduce these items? To remove the one-way street signs?
The one-way street signs on Clinton Street?
Yeah,
Talking about?
Clinton, Downey, and Convent, because also basically they're one-way only, and I believe it's, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, it's from afternoon on Saturday through Sunday, right?
Yes, so that Saturday afternoon from 4:30 till Sunday afternoon at 1:30. It's
Yeah.
only one way.
Very hard to enforce for our police department. So again, if they're not enforcing it, there's no reason for them to be there. But there will be a public hearing for this. Also, John Carge was instrumental, and Charlie Ferry, on their research on the current access from Main Street the ingress on Reservoir running to Franklin Street. Personally, I've talked to the people in Ward 2 and received numerous complaints about that area, people going the wrong way on Reservoir, people turning onto Franklin Street and then continuing on to Reservoir to Main Street. So the legislative committee is asking for, in this local law and, public hearing, that we want to see the ingress to Reservoir from Main Street running to Franklin Street. So that would be, south on Reservoir only one way. Now, there's another issue. So when we looked into the Reservoir Place one-way issue, we also, it came about from Charlie and from John that the space for the crosswalk, and that crosswalk is at the corner of Mill and 9D, and it runs to, close to the corner of Reservoir and 9D. There are spots that are located too close, and currently the village is out of compliance with traffic code. So, John, what he had found out was the space from the crosswalk needs to be 20 feet from that crosswalk. If there's an accident there or something happens, well, the village may be liable for that because we're out of compliance. Now, there's going to be other questions that we have about sign placement. I personally would like to see the signs posted differently. So when you're coming down Prospect Street towards Clapp Avenue, that it's immediately posted that no one can make a right turn, all right? And that part of Franklin Street is one way only. And currently right now, I've seen it time and time again, people do not obey the existing signs there. It's extremely dangerous. That is something that needs to be taken care of. Hopefully we can get that done when this local law is passed. Right? Questions?
Is this a 3-in-1, or is there going to be 3 separate local laws here? I mean, because
I know we want to try to go for a 3-in-1 to save money, but what would you recommend?
well,
It's a lot.
you're trying to be like Verizon. You're going to bundle everything.
Yeah.
I think you just can't bundle all of these. I suppose you can, but it becomes more complicated.
Okay, so if you want to bless you.
Well, what we like to do on something like this, where it's local law for streets, is to bundle. But we have to schedule a public hearing for them. There'll be a lot of discussion. Some may not even carry. Then after the public hearings, then we decide how we're going to go forward with the local law.
But you can have the public hearing on all issues at one time?
Correct. And that's the reason for this tonight, is to give me some direction on when to schedule the public hearing for that.
2 weeks, I would say.
I just think if you put them all 3 together and you bundle it, and someone is opposed to one section of the 3, they'll...
You take it out.
We take it out.
Take it out, yeah.
I'm not even talking about board members yet. I'm talking about constituents. They'll be against the law if you've got all 3 together.
But we can adjust it before we
You
adopt
did the
it.
public hearing.
That's why you
before
have the
adopting
hearing.
the local law, so there's really no issue there.
It's economical to do it that way.
Okay.
So, if you want, I can schedule for the August board meeting. That'll give me enough time to get it in the newspaper.
Yeah, I have to draft the legislation.
Right. Is that enough time? We typically do these during the first meeting of the month, not the workshop.
Well, can you get it in the 2-week time frame?
Attorney Wallace? Or September, it doesn't, I mean, it's been decades now. What's another couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'll get it out to everybody
legislative.
All right, I'll get it out to legislative for review. I just want to make sure at the cross streets.
I'll go over that
Check
with
the
you.
cross
guys
streets
tonight.
with you. Yeah. So I'm looking at parcel access as we talk, and I'm trying to, is it going to be on the west side of 90 or on West Street?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Just on the side where the deli was.
Right.
Yeah, that side, running from that side to Hillside.
All right. So just when we do this, we'll go over the cross streets, we'll be specific.
Okay.
Right, and then I'll get that out.
It's actually the north side of West Street. maybe.
You're right.
North side.
North side of West Street. Does anybody have any comments?
I got one. Franklin is already a one-way street, okay? The problem I have with that issue is there's only one board member present here that has been present for the last few years that knows that I have complained about cars going the wrong way. The only other person that's been here is the village clerk. Everybody else, the former mayor said he was going to discuss this with the police commissioner. Police commissioner said he's going to talk to the mayor, and all that was a lot of smoke. Okay? You have an officer that used to work traffic division who retired. He took it upon himself to park at 6 Franklin Street. 15 tickets. 15 vehicles. 45 minutes. He said, why isn't there a detail over here on there? Because your commissioner and your mayor don't think it's necessary. But it only takes one serious accident. Now, I showed Mike about a month ago, and we had a white pickup truck come down Prospect Street, whip right into Franklin, go flying down, ended up in my driveway, almost hit my son's vehicle.
Almost took us.
And almost took the school bus out. And ended up in my driveway. So what's it going to take before somebody actually does something?
I'd like to say
I mean,
Dave is correct.
John's
It's extremely dangerous.
the village clerk. He knows that I have complained about this. He's walked by my house, and I know he has seen cars going the wrong way.
I live in
But
that
the police
neighborhood.
department does nothing.
Right. Well,
Okay?
that,
Now, you've had 2 village cops that I know of, and one was a female officer, used to be, who also worked in the village of Fishkill, and she said she had better things to do than sit there and watch cars go the wrong way. And she has better things to do than issue parking tickets. What are they being paid to do? Chase ambulances?
well, we're not here to air laundry, but that will be directed to the police commissioner.
Which it will be, we will.
The problem is...
We were there a few weeks ago, Mike and I, and we walked the whole street, and we spoke to you, and you did voice your concerns. I will definitely be in touch with Commissioner Ferry tomorrow. We'll talk about some of your issues. And Mike's trying to address the signs. I think one of the biggest problems was the vision of the signs. As you're turning around each one of these corners, by the time you see it, it might be too late. I'm not saying that's the case with everybody. I think people do it knowing that the signs are
They
there.
sit right at Clap Avenue, facing Franklin, look right at the sign and drive right through. Now, I have security cameras that also take in part of the street. I have also got on video but village patrol cars getting out of the way for cars going the wrong way and do not issue a summons. Now, what good is it if you have a police department that doesn't do anything? They move out of the way and let them continue what they're doing. Okay? Now I'm not saying this commissioner, but the other commissioner that has been there for like 8 years, there's no street and there's no surface street enforcement. There are cars parked illegally on Market Street. There's cars going the wrong way on Franklin. It's well marked. Everybody knows it, but the cops do nothing about it.
All right, Mr. Twilliger, you will need to document all of that to me.
I sent it to Matt, and you know what I got for
Can you
it?
put it in writing, please?
We got video of it.
I need it in writing. for the
We
record,
can do that, we can do that.
Put it-
We also got video, we got still pictures, we got video,
I need
of
a,
actual video tape of.
I need a written record of it. That's what I need.
We can also give you the video copies of it too.
You can do that too, but moreover, I need,
But all this went to Matt and the former police commissioner, and it went nowhere.
well, let's give the new board a chance. There's 5.
No, I mean, I'm so used, I was at 5 or 6 different meetings, and all I kept was, we'll get a detail over there, we'll get a detail. You know what? 0 detail.
Okay.
And then you have another officer, Kevin, he backed up in the house across the street at 3 Franklin when it was abandoned. He no more than got the nose of his car off, backing in, and 2 cars went the wrong way. He came back around, he said, why isn't there a detail over here? I'm there because the police commissioner and the mayor don't want it.
Okay. Let's give them a chance. Get that to me in writing, and I'll circulate.
I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, all the signs in the world do nothing. When I was in school, students got a handbook. It told you what you can do, what you can't do, what the consequences were for doing or not doing. Okay? What good is putting the signs up if you don't enforce them? You can put 100 signs up there, but if you're not going to do anything about it except put a sign up, they look at it this way, okay, sign's there, so I know I'm going the wrong way, so who cares?
Yeah, there's signs up on the thruway, 65 miles an hour, and they're going 90, so.
You know, well, back when it was 65, the troopers let everybody go for 2 months. After 2 months, they figured newspaper, radio, now you get a ticket.
Get that to me in writing, please, and then we'll pursue it. Right, trustee
Yeah,
Mesnick?
we will.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been going on for 5 years, 6 years. What happened to them already? Yeah, it's gonna take somebody getting hurt. I mean, the first time I showed Matt, there was a car that was, a little sports car came through, and there was, at the time, there was a young child that lived at 5 Franklin, was getting off on one of the little handicap buses. The car ended up almost in 5 Franklin to avoid hitting the bus and the kid.
Oh, all of those issues,
Somebody getting seriously hurt.
all of those issues will be addressed. I know that, they will.
You know, I mean, when I went out and I looked, the car was still there, stopped. It stopped 8 feet away from the school bus.
Scary. All right, thank you.
We'll bring it up.
Highway, trustee Sidoti.
Okay, so I just want to give a big thanks out to the highway department for coming out all those overtime hours, putting in immediately to get the trees cleaned up for everybody, get the roads opened up. And they've been doing a lot of storm pickup. They cleaned up the parks. They were very diligent at their work. And also they've been started their sidewalk work, and they're continuing that now. And just wanted to thank everybody who came out and did their job. That's it.
I think they did an outstanding job under far less than ideal conditions, and there were trees down like everywhere. And the park is almost back to normal already, except for the electrical house there got totally demolished, and I'm working on getting that restored. Fire and Lake, trustee Huber.
The fire department had 36 calls for the month, and I think we'll be having a meeting this month, fire committee meeting. And the lake, where our employee's been out there for a month. I think he's pretty far out for 1 month. I think he does 5 hours a day. And we're getting quite a few good compliments on the lake. Doing a great job.
On safety, we had our first safety meeting. We hadn't had one in a year because of COVID, so we had our first one. Our contractor came down from Albany and attended with the team, which trustee Ponte is also part of that 4-member team. There were only, we went through this building and we went through the police department building, checking everything, and we found 2 major problems. stairwell over here is cluttered and we can't have stuff in the stairwell, so I'm working with a contractor to have a door installed at the bottom of the steps, so we at least have some storage underneath. And the police station basement, the doors are supposed to go out, but the way they built them, they come in. So I have a contractor that's going to redo those doors and put a crash bar on it, similar to that door there, so that you can go out at any point, but you can't come in. It'll be locked that way. So those are the two things that I'm working on right now as a result of that safety audit. Recreation?
Tonight was our very first concert. We were supposed to have one last Wednesday, but since the storm and the trees down in the park, so the concerts run until August 11th, every Wednesday from 6 to 8 at Nazir Park. Unless it rains or something happens.
Do you need, now, that electric panel's destroyed, do you need?
There's power to the gazebo.
Okay, all right,
I went down there today and I plugged in the lights and they all came on.
okay, all right.
But we might have to upgrade the power in the gazebo because sometimes we blow breakers, so.
Well, if you need the contractor, let me know and I'll send them over.
Yes.
I think that's it, Mayor, for the reports.
Does trustee Ruffin or Ms. Nick want to add something to finance in light of the fact that Chairman Larcella is on vacation?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay. With that said, any questions from the audience? I'll entertain a motion for...
Mayor, I got something.
Sure.
I would like to.
Sure.
We put this law in effect last year about maintenance of property, and we only done one thing on Remsen, which is take the trees and I think made it worse. We took the trees away from his house. And I took a drive-by today, just to see it and, take a look at it again. And there's a few other properties that we have written down. We spent this money to do this, to make this a law, and nothing's being done. We need to do something because, the village is becoming a nice place, and a lot of new people are moving in here, and we just have these houses that are, overrun by, I don't know, I don't want to say trash, but trash, garbage.
It is trash. It is trash. It is.
And, I don't want to waste money on making a law and nothing being done. So is there any way we can push the process of making these people do it, hiring a contractor coming in and taking care of it?
Well, I would just say this, whether or not we like the process for this, and there is always room for improvement, I don't like the pace of this particular house, this particular issue on Remsen. But...
And he's even got a light on the porch so we can see that night.
That's correct. What I think the intent was, I wasn't on the board when this got adopted, but I think the intent of these laws was to improve the flow of complaints. Now, non-action or little action is going to improve the complaints, because the people who live on those streets, whatever street it is, have been patient. But at some point in time, your patience runs out.
Yeah.
And I think you're at that point. And I mean, every situation is a little different, but I think the general intent was to improve the enforceability. Yes, they did a cleanup there. They chopped the overgrown brush, and then, oh my God, look what's behind the brush. That's what you got.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's a combination of the trustees meeting with the building inspector, which they've been doing. I partook in 3 of these meetings with trustees Ruffin and Lauricella, with the building inspector Murphy, and with the attorney.
Because now they're adding up. I mean, I got one next door to my house now, and they're not even paying attention to their site plan.
So,
Now they're just adding up.
I just had a conversation with the attorney today about this. And I said, the natives are restless. They want to see some results. That's basically what I told them. And I will say the same thing again to the building inspector. The natives are restless.
But he keeps going, but what gets done, right? He said the building inspector, and they keep going here, but nothing gets done. I don't understand this. And this has been going on for a long time. You asked Brett.
Well, I can let the attorney address how the process works. The building inspector's gonna write some kind of summons or some paper to them, order to remedy, and then there's a process there.
Yeah. Well, we have this new legislation that was passed within the past year. And of course, COVID hit, and it was pretty much very difficult to not only write tickets, but enforce, have hearings, and then do the work. In this particular case, this has been an ongoing issue for many years. We all know that, okay? And what happened here was there was action that was taken place. They brought the garbage, from the back to the front? And of course, now we have another problem. And getting jurisdiction over him is going to be difficult because he's not living there anymore. I understand that the utilities have been shut off from the street to the house. And
Porch lights on, so I don't know.
there's nobody living there.
Yeah, but there's
So,
gotta be
we know where he is, but, he has due process rights. Now, whether or not it's garbage or, what is that saying? One man's garbage, another man's treasure? I don't know. But the only thing that can be done is if, in fact, it constitutes another property maintenance violation, the department can go out there, cite him again, and if nothing happens, we can have another public hearing to go over what the village is going to do. And there's a self-help remedy under the statute where we can actually go in there, and we just did, spend the money, and then put it back on that individual's tax bill. It's a last resort.
That building and even the garage.
I can't comment about that because then the village engineer has to get involved. There's that's a whole different process. But there is a process here, so it's not going to happen overnight.
You know that.
Eric.
Do we have a concern that at some point, if there's garbage building up, that it could attract a vermin problem? And the reason I raised that is because the property directly across the street from Village Hall went through that a few years ago, and I know this because my son was living next door. It was an absentee owner, they didn't keep up the property, the house became overrun with rats, which were then tunneling under into our son's house. And they had to call in Waverly and try and remediate it, and it was an awful situation. So at any point, does an accumulation of a certain amount of garbage become a public health and safety issue? Forget the whole trash treasure, building inspector situation.
Yeah, that actually, we have a code section under unsafe building. And that's when the village engineer would get involved. And if it is deemed between them and the building code inspector, to be a hazard, an immediate one for health and safety, that's a totally different situation. Quicker too.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, is that something that should be investigated sooner rather than later to determine if there has been a vermin infestation?
I've got a question.
Getting in there.
Every time the building,
Yeah, getting into somebody's private property is not that easy.
I understand. I think the concern is that just getting the message that a concerted effort is being made to do something as soon as possible.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question here from Fire Chief.
Yeah, well, David's first.
Oh, I thought we already finished.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Oh, no, we started and then we
Okay,
had to stop.
all right.
Go ahead.
okay, I've seen a couple of the meetings when we couldn't be present, and the building inspector, code enforcer, said that he couldn't view certain property. I believe one was on Remsen because he couldn't see in the back. Now, where my father lives, the enforcer for the town of Poughkeepsie couldn't see what was in the back of the house. But I asked him, well, how do we get rid of the problem we got with the neighbor? He said, all I need is a letterhead from the town of Poughkeepsie and for my father to sign it, for him to come on the property, view the offending property, take photos, document it, and then take them to court. That's all it has to do. Why is there always a problem with, I can't get on this property, when it seems like the people that are complaining are the ones that are bordering the property? If my yard is backed up to somebody that's got crap all over their yard, if the code enforcer says I can't go on their property, well, good. Get something from the office, have me sign it, notarize it, and then take your photos, document it, and it's all legal. So when the code enforcer says he can't do it because he can't get on the property, find out who's making the complaints. If it's the one that's on this side and you can see the property from this property, say all I need is something in writing that's notarized so that if they complain about it, I have written permission on like village letterhead that says I can be there and I viewed it from there. You don't have to look from the street. That's the loophole that is being used. I can't see it from the street. Anybody ever think about having a letter drafted up, have it signed, notarized, and then if something comes of it, you got the paperwork right there. If they say, well, you didn't have any right on my property, it wasn't on your property. I was on the people that were complaining. I looked over and I saw the complaint. I photographed it. I mean, why does it have to be so complicated? I mean, if other agencies, other townships can do it, why can't we? Why is it always, we can't go on the property, we can't go on the property?
You can't go on the offending property. You can go on a neighboring property, especially if...
No, but I also heard what the code enforcer said. He's there, I cannot see it from the street, so I cannot say for sure.